Okay, welcome everybody. We're about ready to begin our meeting. Tonight, our speaker is Becky Roe, and the discussion is party in the prickly pear. So that'll be fun. In the back of the room, we have 6 different species available tonight, 4 grasses, 2 perennials. Help yourself if you're in the room. If you're online, think about coming. We always have a lot of plants in here. I'll pause for a second so you can see the species in the photos. Okay, this is our website with our database of plants that are suitable to the local area. A great resource if you're looking for plants for your yard or your property. Here's our upcoming programs. In July, we're meeting in this room for our annual meeting and election results. August and September, we're meeting at the Georgetown Parks Administration Community Room. That address would be on the blog. We'll have Ashley Landry. She's the one that does the Williamson County plant rescue. Talking about in the path of development, planting seeds for the future. And then Carol Clark in September, she was previously the leader of the Bring Back the Monarchs to Texas committee at the state NIPSOT level. I guess we're waiting to see what her topic will be. So that'll be very interesting. And then we have Ryan O'Hanlon, Native Aquatic Plants, back here in this room in October. It's time for our elections for our July meeting. So this is the list of the current nominations. Nominations close on June 18th. So if you would like to nominate anyone, what you need to do is first check with them and see if they want to do it. And then you can send the nomination to that email address. And the deadline for that again is June 18th. And then all members in good standing will receive an email ballot where you can vote. We'll tally the totals and then announce the new board at the July meeting. Okay. Upcoming field trips, we have the Fern Bluff Meander with our own Gary Bowers on Saturday. And then we have a progressive field trip on July 12th. That should be a lot of fun. We're going to go see 2 of our chapter projects, the Williamson County landfill in Hutto and Murphy Park in Taylor. That's a real pretty park where they've just recently redone a monarch waste station. And then followed by lunch at Plowman's Kitchen. So anybody who would like to join for lunch, that's a great restaurant in Taylor. August, we're not having a field trip. It's too hot. Stay cool, think rain. And then in September, we're cooking up something, but it's not quite ready to be published yet. We'll see. Something fun. Last Saturday, we had a field trip at Round Rock's Bob Bennett Utility and Transportation Building. It's a great site. Jessica Woods and Emily Morales led us. They work for the city of Round Rock in the Water Conservation Department. And they spoke at our meeting here, I believe it was in March. So they have it's a large building with a lot of parking lot islands, a lot of grassy fields that they're converting over to native habitat strictly with volunteer work basically from the employees that work in the building. It's really a pretty sight, a lot of different species out there. And you can see in that middle picture on the bottom, they have the signs in the flower beds with the species. So it'd be fun for anyone to stop by there and you can just walk around and look at the plants anytime. It's a public building, right? And I'm not sure if everybody's aware, but we have a Google photo album where people post photos from all of the field trips. So if you've been on a field trip and want to revisit, see if you're in any photos or if you're curious about what happens on the field trips. On that last bullet, there's some instructions how to find that. Upcoming projects where we need volunteers. The Williamson County Landfill Pollinator Garden, that's where we're having that field trip I just mentioned. On the third Sunday of each month is a work day at that garden. And the next one is on June 20th. You don't need to sign up. You don't need to be a member, but bring your gloves and a shovel. Yeah, bring water. Then we have an upcoming event from balconies to backyards. This is an event by the local Master Naturalist chapter, the Goodwater chapter. They wanted us to let everybody know about it. It's on July 18th in the afternoon. The speakers are at the bottom. We've had John Hart Asher and Gil Eckrich have spoken here in our meetings in the last couple of years. And you can attend in person or virtually. And an attendee at tonight's meeting will win this book, Cacti of Texas, a field guide. So come up to the table over here at the end of the meeting if you win the raffle to give us your mailing address and we'll mail it to your house. And here's general information, how to find us. We have a YouTube channel, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram. And of course, we have our wonderful blog, nips.wilco.org. Okay, now I'll hand this over to Becky. One second. Becky Roe is a lifelong nature lover. She found her niche when she became a Master Naturalist in 2022 with the Goodwater Chapter. As a Master Naturalist, her interest in plants has intensified, especially native plants, which led to her joining the Native Plant Society in 2023. She's a member of the Tonkawa Chapter, which is north of Williamson County, and she's an associate member of the Williamson County Chapter. She also volunteers at Mother Neff State Park as often as possible, helping with school field days and leading guided plant hikes. She enjoys sharing with others how plants interact with all the other parts of nature and how people have historically used those plants. So Becky, come on up.
Well, thank y'all so much for having me. I'm always excited when I get to talk about plants, and talking about plants to people who know about plants is a little intimidating sometimes, but if y'all just remember, I'm not a botanist. I do a lot of other things, but botany is not one of them. Everything is just from research and personal observations. So hopefully we'll have some fun tonight. You're probably wondering, why did I pick the name Party in the Prickly Pear? And I was inspired by this picture. This picture I took. Those are cactus coriaid bugs, the nymphs. And I thought, it's a gathering, so it's a party. And then I was looking through my other pictures and found this one. Those are Kern's flower scarabs. If you've ever looked in a prickly pear blossom, you've probably seen these. They seem to be ever present when they're in bloom, and it looks like a party again.
I almost kicked it out.
But it really was clinched when I was going through Facebook Marketplace, as it often happens. And apparently my search history of studying for all of this, or researching, came up with this. So when you've got a prickly pear disco ball, you got to call it a party. So there we go. And you too can rent this. It is $50 from a place in Austin. And you get a pair, an 18-inch one and a 12-inch one. Just in case, your elections are next month, you could have a party there. So why do we talk about prickly pear? First, I think they're cool, but I also have a pet peeve. This is my pet peeve. You see it all the time. Saguaro cactus. It's on t-shirts, stickers, all of the, touristy stuff you see. Well, guess what? There's like 3 saguaro. They're all within like 50 feet of the Rio Grande River, and they were transplanted here. So this really gets to me. People send this stuff to me because they know, and mostly it's my sister. She knows how annoying I find it, so she continues to do it. And some of you know my sister, so you understand. So I want to talk about it because it's the state plant of Texas. And it occurs pretty much all over the state. This is a BONAP. I don't have to look up there. I forget I have this. It's a BONAP map that shows the counties in which prickly pear have been identified, that it's there and it's not rare. The dark green means it's in your state, someplace in the state. The bright green means that it is actually present in that county. So that kind of gives you an idea. It's pretty much all over. In some of these counties, I'd be surprised if there aren't prickly pear, especially the ones out toward the west. I think somebody just hasn't gone out and looked for them, but that's my personal opinion. Another reason I wanted to pick this one is resilience. May 22nd of 2024, a tornado hit Temple, Texas. I live in Temple, Texas. The main damage was less than a quarter of a mile from my house. I had very minimal damage. Had to get a new roof because of the hail. And one of my multiple prickly pears took a hit. So you see, one of the pads fell off, and I was so busy at first, I didn't have a chance to pick them up and put them in a pot. And then it got to be, well, I wonder how long it'll take for that to like decompose. And a year later, I took this picture, and if you can't tell,
Got a baby.
it started growing. And that's when I decided to put it in a pot. And it's still growing. So you can come look at it. I'm not giving that one away. And there were actually 2 pads that broke off. The other one, it was a little experiment. I cut it in quarters and put each one in a pot. And 2 of them did just fine. And I brought them. And if you want them, you can fight for them. So these are actually Engelmann, Opuntia engelmannii, and it is actually the actual state plant. So there you go. If you want them, you get some bonus Bermuda grass, it looks like. Sorry. So it's still going strong. It'd probably be better if I like watered it or something. I haven't, and it's under my patio. So tonight we're gonna kind of go over what is cactus. I learned some stuff about cactus I didn't know. Exactly what is prickly pear and what makes it different. What's its place in nature, and how, kind of my favorite part is how do humans use it? How have they used it in the past? How do we use it now? So hopefully we'll have some fun with this. And if I make a glaring mistake, please let me know. So let's start with cactus. Texas has lots of cactus. All of these cactus are things that I have found as I went to state parks and whatnot across the state. Most have fleshy stems. Most have sharp spines, but not all of them. And they have showy flowers, as we can see in most of these. The taxonomy, I won't get into a whole lot of this. There we go. Because y'all are pretty familiar with taxonomy of plants, I would think. It's just how they identify plants and which groups they put them in. And here's the full taxonomy of cactus in particular. There's more than 125 genera nationwide or worldwide, and more than 2,000 species. They are part of the pinks classification of plants or the order of plants. So all of their flowers are going to be in the yellow, orange, red kind of group. You won't find purple and blue. I thought that was interesting. Not that I've ever seen purple or blue, but thought that was very interesting. So where are the cactus? Well, right now, you can find them pretty much worldwide. However, they weren't always worldwide. They're only native to the Americas, North America, South America, and the islands associated with those continents. I looked on a iNaturalist map just to see where the prickly pear were, and it was pretty much worldwide, including Alaska. I had to check that one out because I thought, how on earth? And it was a pot plant. So somebody, probably some homesick Texan, got sent up there and took their pot plant with them. They range naturally from British Columbia and Alberta and throughout Canada, all the way to Argentina in the south. So lots and lots of plants there. In North America, there are approximately 50 genera and 450 species. I say approximately because I found all kinds of numbers, and as low as 16 in the United States genera, and I just didn't think that was right. So I kept looking until I found a number I thought was right. That's what scientists do, right? So the most numerous genera in North America are the Mammillaria. These are nipple cactus. There are about 300 species of those in North America, and this is a picture of a rat-tailed nipple cactus. Cereus includes like claret cup, and there are about 40 species of this type. Sclerocactus includes the fishhook type cacti. There are about 20 of those species. And then we get to Opuntia. Opuntia also includes things like cholla, saguaro, and of course, our prickly pear. And this is this particular picture is Christmas cholla, also called jumping cactus, and that's not incorrect. If you walk past it, if you think about it, it's going to jump on you. So let's move on to prickly pear. How does prickly pear differ from other types of cactus? Let's start with some trivia here. Opuntia, the word actually comes from Greek. A philosopher and naturalist named Theophrastus, who lived from 371 to 287 BCE, he's kind of considered the first botanist, and he wrote of a plant. It wasn't prickly pear or Opuntia, but this is the source. He wrote of a plant that puts forth roots from its leaves. And he was in the town of Opus, the Greek town of Opus. It wasn't prickly pear, but it inspired the taxonomist who gave it its name. As I mentioned, Opuntia is the state plant of Texas. It was made the state plant in 1995, and the specific species is the Engelmann prickly pear, also called cactus apple. I've never heard it called that, but somebody calls it cactus apple. And there are about 5 varieties actually of Engelmann prickly pear, and it's hard to tell them apart. I'll just tell you, except for the cow tongue is called linguiformis, and it is an Engelmann variety. Also, the Mexican flag features a prickly pear with an eagle standing on top of it. So that's what you've got. Let me see if I can. Where does this? Oh, here we go. Right there is the prickly pear. And I don't know what the other stuff is there, but there it is. You can tell it is a widely distributed plant. There are about 200 species of prickly pear around the world. 52 of the species are found in the US and Canada. This map again is from the BONAP website, which is the Biota of North America project by the USDA. Talk about a rabbit hole you can fall down. Just do it early in the day, otherwise you're up all night. Ask me how I know. The dark green again is the states in which it actually occurs, or where it's native, and the bright green is the counties in which it actually occurs. You'll notice that the states of New Hampshire and Maine do not have any native prickly pear, and they're the only two states that don't.
We can do something about.
There are no native species. I bet somebody's already put them there. If not, they should. Let's talk a little morphology. This is a sort of diagram of Opuntia in general, and most of them follow this same type of, have the same morphology. The fruit are actually called tunas. It is actually a true berry, and if you've ever seen how many seeds are in it, you'll know that that's right. The pads, sometimes some people call them the leaves, some people call them the stems. They are actually like a stem or a trunk, but they're known as cladodes. I'll be referring to it as pads because I can't remember cladodes. They do actually have leaves. The leaves are only on new growth and eventually become areoles and spines. And I actually have some to pass around here. These are often actual, one of my plants, or two of my plants, I guess. These are from the spineless prickly pear, which is Opuntia aliciana, and they are, you see them everywhere. In landscaping, I see them at state parks. They're not native, despite how widespread they are. The Wildflower Center refers to them as only being present in Texas in cultivation. I think they've escaped because I see them out in state parks, and probably every park around here has some. Those leaves will dissolve and become the spines and the glochids, which are the next on my list there. The spines vary in size. And I have another thing here. You go from Aliciana, which is basically no spines at all. These came off of a purple prickly pear that I got when I visited the Chihuahuan Desert Research Center out in Davis Mountains, Fort Davis. These are long and they're sharp. And my plant didn't seem to care that I picked them off. But if you want to pass those around, yes. Oh, I will. Francis, can I? Here you go. I'll even take this one out to show the folks on.
Don't do it.
Hey, I'm not scared of these. This part doesn't bother me. These are, I may need to hold something up behind them. How's that? Does it show up? Okay. They're big. You can see how big my fingers are compared to that. When I purchased my plants at the Chihuahuan Desert place, I was carrying a travel purse that is some of that super dense fabric. You can't cut it with a knife. Spines got stuck in it. I have a picture. I decided not to bore you with that one, but I had to walk around showing my sister, find her, look at this. Anyway. Then you have the glochids. They're just evil. As I was picking this stuff up and bringing it here, it's like I didn't even come in contact. I swear I didn't come in contact. I still ended up with a glochid in my thumb. I don't know how, but if you get those, you're going to know it because they won't come out. You can try using tweezers. I'm not very successful with that. When they first go in, if you put duct tape on it, sometimes that'll help. So you can pull it out. They're actually pronged. So when they go in, they don't want to come out. Don't recommend. Do not recommend at all. 0 out of 10, exactly. Maybe a negative there. Then you have the areoles, which are the little circles at the base of the thorns, and that's where everything comes out, the thorns and the glochids and all of the bad stuff. This particular diagram doesn't show the roots. They do have a pretty vast root system. They don't go down, they go out. They want to cover the most square footage or square whatever inches to be able to absorb what little rain falls in their area. So when you get out there and you try to dig one up, you may have an adventure and it's going to be all over the place. The blooms, right now is like prime time to see the blooms. They may start to wane here a little bit. They bloom from April to June. The colors tend to be yellow to dark orange to red. Some of them stay the same color. Other varieties will, and species will go through a prismatic, succession of those colors and end up dark red. They're regular flowers, meaning that they're symmetrical. They have the same numbers and they're all the same size. The petals and whatnot are all the same size rather than being like a day flower where you've got big ones and big petals and little petals and that sort of thing. They're bisexual, meaning they have male and female parts. The tuna, which is the fruit of the prickly pear and where it gets its name, has many, many seeds. If you cut one apart, it's mostly seeds. So you don't eat it so much as juice it and use it that way. This is a new one for me. I had never heard of extrafloral nectaries. Anybody hear of that? I was blown away. Like I said, I'm not a botanist, but extrafloral nectaries are nectar sources aside from the flowers. They're small glands that are in the areole, and insects can get actual nectar from the areole, the glands that have the nectar, and it's not in the flowers. They're present when the flowers are not usually, but they are a spring and summer thing when the insects are most active. There's a thought, and I may get into this more later, but there's a thought that the reason for that could be to attract ants, which then deter other insects from coming and eating the plant. But that's just speculation. Size. Size is an interesting thing with prickly pear. These two pictures on the left of the screen, I took within about 20 feet of each other. It was at Enchanted Rock State Park. The one on the top is very small. The largest of those pads there is about 3 inches wide. I don't have anything for scale in the bottom ones, but the largest of those pads were about the size of dinner plates. So I'm this big, at least. It was fascinating. Obviously, they're different species and vary greatly. Height, some of them are very low to the ground. You can't see them through the grass, so don't go barefoot in grass you're not familiar with. And this is why, at the state parks, they tell you stay on the trail. You may encounter something you don't want to. This picture my sister took, it's a sister for scale kind of thing. It's kind of on a slope. It's a little distorted there. It wasn't that big of a slope, but this plant, that's me in the picture, and that plant is at least 10 feet tall. It was huge, absolutely huge. So we talked about the plant. What does the plant do in nature? Or what's its place? What function does it serve? Or functions? Sometimes there's more than one. It serves as a habitat. It's considered a shrub on the list, the plant lists of, what you should plant in your yard. It falls under the shrub category, which is kind of weird to me, but to me, it's just a cactus. Likes the hot and dry. It'll take full sun and then some. Very popular or very numerous in the south central and western United States. It grows in the lower elevations in mountain areas. There are even species on beaches. I found some in a swamp, but could not find my picture of it. So take my word for it. It was down at near Anahuac at a wildlife refuge there. I can't think of the name of it. And they're the most cold tolerant of the cactuses. I have one. I only bring it in for anything if it's going to be like below 15 for days at a time, like back in 2020 when we had that lovely experience. Where will it grow? Everywhere. These are just a few pictures that I took. Well, 3 of these I took. The one on the left, it was in the crook of a bur oak tree at the Galt site over in Florence. I just happened to look up. We were getting a tour of the grounds, believe it or not, but that was 30 feet in the air. I have also taken pictures at McKinney Falls, Inks Lake, and Fort Richardson that all had these airborne um, prickly pear. I suspect that at least this one and probably a couple of the other ones were deposited there by raccoons who had eaten some of the tunas. Um, the one at McKinney Falls was kind of low to the ground, so I kind of wonder if a kid threw a prickly pear pad up there. Just not sure. It'll grow in solid rock, or seemingly it will. This is at Big Bend Ranch State Park. This was about 40 feet in the air. I don't even know. Apparently for this one, soil was optional. It just gets its nutrients from the runoff. And the one on the right is an asphalt road that I found. It's a kind of an abandoned road. It was shut off. I walked to take this picture. There's prickly pear growing just in the cedar duff that has landed on the road. And you can see there's this huge section here in the middle. Oh, this thing has got a mind of its own. Yeah, there we go. It's got all the way back here, all the way here, and it even went around the curve. So that prickly pear was determined it was going to live there. And this is a random picture I found on Facebook of one growing out of a crack in a highway retaining wall. And I've actually seen this, but I was going like 70 miles an hour and didn't feel like turning around 3 miles later when I found an exit. But it happens. That's probably in California, I think, is where it came from there. But in nature, it has a job. It's not just there for our benefit and our pleasure, which I take great pleasure in this, and I'll tromp through just about anything to take a picture of prickly pear. Provides shelter for birds. Here we have a photo. The upper right is a kind of a disintegrating cactus wren nest in some, that's the cow tongue prickly pear, which is Engelmannii linguiforma, I believe is the name of it. That was fun to find. And then it will also serve as shelter for various animals, small mammals, rodents, birds. They all like to get among the thorns, in amongst those thorns, keeps the predators away. A bobcat's probably not going to follow you into a thicket like that. They know what happens, and they probably know about glockets too. Other plants also like to grow up in the middle of a prickly pear. They're not going to get grazed on if they're surrounded by these thorns. They're a good food source, both the pads and the tunas. All sorts of animals like to eat it, including tortoises. And this is a tortoise from the Fort Worth Nature Center. They posted about him eating tunas. Apparently that's his favorite snack. I just thought that was cool. I like turtles. Insects, all kinds of insects like it. Butterflies, moths, bees, flies, all sorts of things there. It's also a host plant for a number of insects. A host means that it's the plant that the insect has to have. Some of these are the cactus bugs. There's a Latin name here. I'm not going to even try. Longhorn beetles. It's a host for the blue metalmark butterfly and paralid moths. So it has all kinds of friends that it likes to have around. And it may have a protector in the ants, as I mentioned. They like that nectar, so they keep coming back and maybe keep things away.
Those bugs aren't bad.
No, the ones on the top are not. They actually have to have the prickly pear to be able to reproduce or to produce, I guess, at that point. And of course, they're pollinators, so that helps to pollinate the flowers of the different plants. There are some bad news here. We've got lots, these are all host plants again. You can see the Latin scientific names there for them. I'm not even going to try to pronounce them. But not all of them are that great. Oh, I messed this up very badly. Rats. This is supposed to be a picture that shows the the cactus moth, which is a bad deal here. Cactoblastis cactorum. It's native to South America, specifically from Argentina. Were you trying to fix it and take that? Okay, that would be helpful. I forgot to put something in there, an animation, I guess. I'll continue here. It was exported, this cactus moth was exported from Argentina, where its native range, was taken to Australia. Prickly pear had been imported into Australia, and apparently it just took off. Here we go. This is a better this tells you more. It shows the larval state, the adult, and then the eggs. And the eggs, as you can see, grow on the end of the thorn. So if you don't know what to look for or aren't looking for it, you may not even notice. This part, oh, right here. There we go. This, from this point to this point, is the eggs. Yeah, it's mind-blowing. Anyway, it went to, oh, did I do that? Sorry. They imported, whatever, took them off to Australia. It worked there very well, eradicating the prickly pear that they no longer wanted. So it worked so well that they sent it to the Caribbean. And they had extra prickly pear there. Apparently it worked there. But in the 80s, I looked it up, there were quite a few hurricanes, tropical storms, that sort of thing. Could have been nursery trade. However, it ended up in Florida in 1989, and it has been moving west ever since. It first appeared in Texas in 2017. It's stayed here in Texas. The map on the right shows some research that was done by UT Austin, the Biodiversity Center there. And it kind of shows you where it's been spotted and where they are tracking it. So far, only 5 counties have experienced cactus moths. The map on the right is one that I did last night. I took that picture off of iNaturalist to try to get some more recent information. The one on the left is from, I believe, 2005, or excuse me, 2025. So it was over a year ago. The most recent one that they spotted or that's been reported on iNaturalist was in Gonzales County near Goliad. And the other ones have been in Chambers County, Brazoria County, Matagorda, Jackson, and Colorado counties. We're all kind of southwest near the coast. Of course, it's being tracked by UT and A&M. And it's a big concern because as it moves west, we have a number of species of cactus that only occur in Texas. They're prickly pear. There are 8 of them that only occur in our state. They're all they're in the Trans-Pecos region, and some of them have extremely small territories, like up in the Chisos Mountains is the only place those occur. So it could wipe out an entire species pretty easily if it gets that far. They do seem to be slowed down by cold weather. They took a real hit during Tropical Storm Uri back in 2020. So maybe cold weather. Research is being done to try to introduce or possibly introduce parasitoid wasps that are the natural prey of the moths. This is what the damage looks like. It's not very obvious. These are backlit, so you can tell that the caterpillars or the larva of the moth actually burrows inside the pads and eats the insides. So the outside could look just fine. The inside is hollow though, and that's why you can see the light through it. Yeah, it's kind of scary looking. So if you spot one of these or, signs of this damage, it's recommended that you report it. There's a place you can report it on texasinvasives.org. Something called EdMaps. Department of Agriculture has an email there. And Texas State University does some research on this also. You can just Google report cactus moths and all sorts of resources come up there. This is a more upbeat part of this program here. That was kind of, your call to action supposed to be the end of your presentation. I didn't want to leave it on that. So now we're going to talk about the cochineal. This is a cool thing too, and it kind of revolutionized art and other things. Cochineal is a scale insect. There in the middle is a picture of what they look like. It's used to make dyes. You've probably seen the evidence of these if you've seen any amount of prickly pear. Didn't find too much last year at all. This year I found quite a bit. You see this white fluffy looking stuff on the pads. Let's try this again. Yeah, over here. That's very fluffy. That is a protective layer that the females lay or produce to lay their eggs. And you see a picture here to the right of it's from like 400 years ago, this illustration showing somebody scraping that white stuff off. When they do that, they get the bugs, the actual insects, in amongst what they're scraping off, and they crush the female. Well, I'm sure they crush all of it, but the females are the ones that produce the red. This is a bright red, and it's used all sorts of ways. Even today, it's used it's a natural substance, a natural food coloring. They use it in cosmetics. So if your lipstick says carmine red as one of the ingredients, or your food says carmine red, it's probably got cochineal in it. Now, it runs into kind of a problem for folks who are trying to maintain a vegan lifestyle because they do not always identify it as being from cochineal. But I found on a vegan website that some of the keywords to look for on those food products is carmine or carminic acid, natural red number 4, natural coloring, or E120 if it's a product from Europe. Those all indicate that it is from cochineal and therefore it is from an insect. If you are looking for things that are not insect or not animal based, You'd look for red number 2 or red number 40. Those are synthetic and they are derived from other sources. This is coal and petroleum, which doesn't sound very pleasant, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do. You know, what are you going to do? Or eat things that aren't red. It revolutionized textiles and art. Because before the reds that they had weren't particularly red, it was much more muted. They actually found the cochineal and imported it back to Europe, which of course they absolutely loved. The old masters, Rembrandt, Vermeer, used it to create red in their paintings, which had not been seen before. It was used in textiles to make military uniforms, clerical garb. The cardinals in the Catholic Church wear red that came from the cochineal. Red coats that we are celebrating 250 years of having defeated. The red in their coats actually came from cochineal. Ancient Americans used it as well. They have found evidence dating back over 500 years BCE that indicates it was used in cave painting and in different types of petroglyphs and that sort of thing. So it withstands the test of time as well. So let's talk about other past uses that humans have done. It was used as food. All the parts except the roots are edible. The pads were eaten raw, or they were sliced and sun-dried and saved for later. Candy and chewing gum, or what we would call chewing gum now, was made from the tunas. The flowers were even eaten. The nectar and the pollen from the flowers was nutritious. They would line roasting pits with it. So it was like the original aluminum foil. They'd line it with prickly pear pads and then put the meat or whatever they were cooking on top of that. They knew how to safely eat and prepare the prickly pear. I've heard that they would rub it in the sand or carry around rocks and rub it with rocks to get the glochids and the thorns off. It is said, I found this an interesting story. La Salle, the French explorer who ran aground in Matagorda Bay, actually he ordered his crew to not eat prickly pear. They didn't know how to properly produce it. They were hungry, and some of them ate them anyway and ended up dying because of the thorns, caused inflammation and that sort of thing. So definitely want to learn how to prepare it. Native Americans also used it to treat wounds and burns. They would split the pads in half lengthwise, and have 2 flat pads, and the goo from that they would use to put on wounds, such as we would use aloe vera now. Or they would roast the pads and then use them as a heating pad, put them on rheumatoid affected places, and then they would also, use it to treat swelling and that sort of thing. They would also use it as a tool, and I am always trying to make everything a craft project. They would use the spines for sewing and use it as a needle. They'd use it for tattooing and piercing, even piercing leather. They'd use the sap for shampoo, and they would fashion the pads into pouches, and I had to give it a whirl. This could also be used, you see here, I've attached leather to it. This actually holds water. It has one little drip, and it was my first try. I think if I did it again, I could get it to not drip. It actually holds water. I would probably put a rock in it or something. I dried it in my dehydrator since I didn't know how long it would take to dry it out in the sun. But if you want to pass that around, I'm not responsible enough to not get glochids myself. I brushed these off as much as I could. I went to town and got rid of them. But if you want to look at it, I'll pass it around. I did. Were you able to see it? Gary, okay. Anyway, I'm not happy if I can't make a craft project out of it.
Awesome.
I'm glad you like it, Francis.
So cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Many of the European settlers used it, used prickly pear the same way that the Native Americans did. That was their observation. But there was a nearer history, probably within some of our lifetimes. It said that prickly pear saved Texas ranching. I was aware of this. I had family that was in ranching and they owned one of these devices. There was a devastating drought through the 40s and 50s. You've probably heard about it. There was insufficient rain, which meant no grass, and no grass means no food for cattle. A gentleman who lived north of Lockhart, which to me that means Austin, but back then things were spread out a little farther, noticed that there was still prickly pear in his field, even though there was nothing for his animals to graze on. So he knew that it was edible. He'd seen deer eat it. So he devised a pear burner, which was a fuel source on a long stick, and they would light the end of it, and they would sear the thorns and glochids off of the prickly pear pads so the cattle could go in and eat them. Ended up saving the cattle industry. They didn't have to, their cattle weren't dying anymore. So it kind of went across the state. You too can own one on Amazon. They're about $40 because you can buy anything on Amazon, right? Present. If you walk through HEB, I believe all of these except the salad up here on the upper right are pictures I took at HEB. There's, oh, the alcohol, maybe not. Yeah, not that one. You can buy the fresh, chopped, prepared prickly pear. It is actually called nopals or nopalitos. You can even get jerky that is made out of the tunas. Just about anything. You see it in cosmetics as well, besides lipstick. There was a whole line of this nopalera stuff at Kohl's. They had soap and body wash and all kinds of stuff. It's a little pricey. But if you want to do that, there you go. So this brings us to what might be available in the future. You may have noticed things are hotter and drier these days. So prickly pear may be a good answer. There's been research that shows that prickly pear can be a superfood. Research is being done to see if it would help in the treatment of diabetes, obesity, cardiovascular disease, even cancer. A cup of nopals or prickly pear, nopales, has 1 cup has 5 grams of dietary fiber. Broccoli, which is kind of my comparison for everything vegetable related, has only 2.5 grams of broccoli or grams of fiber. It has 23 calories per cup, and broccoli has 55 calories. So it's quite the food there. I've eaten it. I think it tastes like green beans, but that's just me. If you get it for breakfast at a Mexican food restaurant, it is going to be mixed with like tomatoes and peppers, so it tastes like green beans with Rotel mixed in. There's even vegan leather that's plant-based, made from prickly pear.
In your purse.
My purse?
Your
Oh, well, that's true. I hadn't even thought about that. To me, that's a water cup. I'm going to drink water out of that one. Anyway, you can get an iPhone case. It's only about $70. I would have thought it'd be a lot more than that. You can get a tooled leather belt. I don't recall how much that one was. Also for sustainable agriculture, it's a very useful plant, and it can be eaten. It can be used for other things. And other parts of the world already use it and actually farm it. In Europe, they have farms. It's a very popular thing. I believe it's an Italian liqueur that is made from Barbary fig, which is Opuntia indica ficus, I think. Excuse me. Okay, thanks. Ficus indica. I had it backwards, that they grow specifically for that. And there are actually farms here in Texas. The closest one I could find, it's kind of a hobby farm or a boutique farm kind of thing, I think, and it's in Lampasas, which is just northwest of here at 183. So I have presented what I think are pretty cool facts about prickly pear. I hope I didn't bore you to death. Well, you are very welcome, and I appreciate the opportunity here and your patience.